It's all about opportunity cost. I've been there myself. When I was building my previous company, we worked with people that were managing distribution warehouses. They're on their feet all day. They got to move really fast. If I have to spend 10, 15 minutes inputting an order into a system, that's another 3-4 customers that I'm not serving.
Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the #1 voice of supply chain. Join us as we share critical news, key insights, and real supply chain leadership from across the globe, one conversation at a time.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Kevin L. Jackson with you here on Supply Chain Now. Kevin, how you doing?
Hey, man. Hey, great to see you. But you have a magic touch. You know exactly what to say to get me running to the show. The magic words, you said data, you said artificial intelligence, and you said digital transformation. Boom, I appeared. It's like a genie.
I thought you were going to add in sake.
Yeah, baby.
We'll get to that in just a second. But folks, great to have you here. Kevin, great to have you here. Got a great show teed up. We're going to be featuring a business leader that's helping supply chain teams to truly automate the mess away. And there's a lot of mess and friction and pressure and pain in global supply chains, right? Yeah. Well, we're going to get into what real supply chain automation looks like here in 2025. We're going to be talking about the true cost of manual workflows, what's driving that cost, and how it can create all sorts of chaos, right? And we're going to be exploring why unstructured data is still such a big-time supply chain challenge. All that and much, much more. Kevin, we're talking your language here today. Should be a great show, huh?
Yeah, especially how to use sake to lubricate your supply chain.
Hey, I love it. Hey, whatever gets the friction out, my friend. But Kevin, given your status as a global technology guru and digital transformer, I look forward to gaining your insights as well. Okay, are you ready to go, Kevin L. Jackson?
Let's rock, baby.
Well, we've got a great guest. I want to bring in our featured rock and roll star here today, Antonio Bustamante, CEO with BIM. Hey, Antonio, how you doing today?
Scott, Kevin, so good to see you.
Hello.
You as well. Now, we're going to start with a fundamental question. We really enjoyed our conversations with you prior to today. And I'm not going to mention, me and you both are big Back to the Future fans. We'll have to save that to another show. Because Kevin and Antonio, we learned something here today, earlier in the green room. Folks, today is Global Running Day. It is, which is not my favorite holiday. It's National Cheese Day, and it's National Cognac Day. So on that note, adult beverages is a topic that we've learned about. I want to ask you, Antonio, about, because you've got a passion for brewing your own sake. Check out this delicious ice cold bottle there. So tell us more about this, Antonio.
You caught me. I mean, I just really enjoy it. And I want to say to everyone, anyone can do it. And if you want tips, I will jump on a call with you to explain to you how easy it is to do it.
Oh, I like that. Kevin, that sounds terrific to me. How about you?
It's DIY sake.
Antonio was also sharing in the pre-show just how surprisingly easy it is. So folks, take him up. If you don't want to talk all cool things about supply chain automation, making life easier for your teams, talk to Antonio about sake. I promise you'll enjoy the conversation. Okay, so Antonio and Kevin, we got a lot to get into here today, I want to start with some level setting, Antonio, because we do not get enough context in this ever fast-moving world. The velocity just keeps picking up and picking up. So if you would, for starters, tell us briefly about yourself, about the organization BIM, and the problems you're solving in the supply chain space.
I'm Antonio. I've been building in supply chain automation for the last 10 years. I've been an operator myself, and I'm the founder of a company called BIM. And what we do is actually really simple. We help companies with our platform to automate some of the most painful manual parts of their operations. So especially where teams are stuck processing emails, PDFs, and spreadsheets by hand. We've just seen that in supply chain, that often means freight contracts, invoices, rate confirmations, all the things that just don't fit nearly into the system. We help you turn those into clean data.
Man, that is music to my ears. But Kevin, I want to get you to respond to what we heard there from Antonio. One of my favorite parts is he's been there and done it as an operator. So he knows the pains and the processes and what has to happen successfully every day. And so to use that knowledge and help teams find an easier and a more automated way to find success, that is terrific. Kevin, what'd you hear there from Antonio?
I just want to clarify, some of my best friends are human, right? But humans make some of the worst mistakes when it comes to data entry. So, you type something up and you send it or you scan something, and then a human has to type that rate or type that price or into another computer, right?
Yeah.
And this happens over and over and over again. And every time you have a human in the loop, there's a mistake that can happen. So what you're doing is helping us reduce that rate of mistakes.
And we want to help humans, actually, right? Like, we don't even want to replace them. We actually think this is a tool that in the long run is going to generate more jobs and reduce risk. And so we think of it as a tool.
And who wants to sit there typing in numbers all day?
No one.
To your point, no one does probably. Although I've known some data nerds in my life that love that. And hey, to each their own. But what's interesting though, because there's all kinds of studies, 10,000 studies. I pulled up one here the other day. Let's see here. I'm going to get the numbers right. No pun intended. For 10,000 data entries, humans can make somewhere between 100 and 400 errors. And actually, I've seen other studies that show that rate may be over 7% in some cases. That probably is still conservative. And it's not fun. It's not fun work. And there's lots of pressure on getting the numbers right. So I can't wait to dive more into this conversation, Antonio. Let's do this. I want to ask you, of course, automation. Everybody, tariffs and AI is a part of every conversation. And there are companies everywhere that are using automation not only to help empower their human teams, but overcome some of the labor market challenges and much, much more out there. So, Antonio, in your view, what does supply chain automation really look like here in 2025?
It's interesting. I think the reality today is still back and forth, endless emails. It's still humans reading PDFs and invoices and spreadsheets and entering them into another system. It's a lot of errors, a lot of delays. And I think the risk is just massive. I think AI has done an okay job for the last couple of years, but it's still too DIY. Operators are being sold AI coworkers and prompt tooling. And what we hear from them is, look, I don't want to be taught how to fix my pipes. I just need a plumber to do it. That's really the market. There's a lot of noise, but there's still a lot of risk, a lot of manual data entry. And we just want to meet people where they're at. Operators don't want DIY AI. They want a system that just works.
I love that. Kevin, meet people where they're at. That's my favorite part of his response right there. Your thoughts?
Yeah. And you were talking about supply chain automation, and I keyed on the word 2025 and tariffs. Okay. I mean, ugly words, of course, but there used to be a bit of stability in that world. I mean, a rate may change, but it'll be that rate for the next year, 5 years. Now these rates may change every hour, and that can change your forecast. That could change what you're going to order. That could change your business, and all that data has to go into your planning. And it's just can be too much unless you have automation in place.
Well, and two thoughts there. Technology is not optional in so many cases because of the scope that you're talking about. We got to lean into it. And secondly, you're mentioning some of the changes in the landscape we're in. Well, I read a recent study. I don't have it in front of me. Pricing. It changes all the time in many relationships. Well, there was a study put out by some friends of ours over at Enable. I think the number is 86% of pricing professionals in a survey said they would lose profit because their pricing isn't as dynamic as it needs to be. And we can lean in technology for that. Okay, I want to do this. I want to talk about some of the industry challenges we have. We're kind of already opening, the genie's partially out of that bottle already, but I want to dive a little deeper here. Speaking of data and factoid, maybe I'm the data nerd here. Gartner reports that manual processes cost companies up to $5 million a year. Goodness gracious. So, Antonio, let's dive more into what's behind that. And beyond the dollars, what's the real cost of manual data entry, especially in the freight world?
I mean, honestly, every manual process in supply chain is a liability. It compounds over time. The quickest go-to is labor, right? Labor is a huge part of it. But actually, I feel like the bigger cost is lost revenue. It's all about opportunity cost. I've been there myself. When I was building my previous company, we worked with people that were managing distribution warehouses. They're on their feet all day. They got to move really fast. If I have to spend 10, 15 minutes inputting an order into a system, that's another 3, 4 customers that I'm not serving.
Yep.
And so I think while labor and errors and delays and risk is a huge one, we actually want to be in a place where we want to make people more money. And that is by serving their customers much better.
That's right. Name of the game. And Kevin, he focused on the time. Time is money, but time's also many other things. And if we're going to talk about the real cost, we got to include time and probably a laundry list of things. Your thoughts there, Kevin?
Yeah, he's talking about how internal manual processes prevent your internal processes moving forward. But what about responding to your external customers, responding to your external partners, managing those external links? So you get problems on top of problems. They're compounded by having the manual processes.
Kevin, along those lines, and Antonio, I'll get you to respond before I move on to the next question I'll pose to you. Going back to the error rates, I talk about this a lot, but when I was in the Air Force forever ago, I was one of my big tasks every day was part of our data integrity efforts, right? Our mission there was to keep our fleet of aircraft mission capable, right? And maximize and optimize that rate. Well, we were focused on eliminating the errors that can tie up maintenance teams and waste hours and not get to the root cause of the problem. And to kind of what Kevin's point there, if we can imagine if every organization could cut their errors in half, can you imagine, or a third or a fifth, can you imagine how much time and how less headaches we would have, Antonio? So really, this is a huge proactive opportunity, huh?
You'd be surprised when every company we've onboarded, they always show us their existing data as a way to say, hey, here's our golden data, they call it, right? It's like, this is the golden standard. And we actually find errors in every single input. I think it's really interesting. They think that their teams of humans, of people, are doing such a great job, but we actually start running into errors. And so it's a huge, huge operational risk. And we've actually decided in the past few months that we now have a larger AI model that supervises us and supervises our users and kind of gives them hints of like, hey, you told us this data was perfect. Actually, we identified it's not. Because we've seen that we can't even be trusted with that,
It's a massive risk, as you shared, Antonio. It's also a massive opportunity. And I love the work you are doing. We're going to get into that in just a second. But you mentioned data. And we were talking data with Kevin. That's one of those things Kevin loves. It's right up his alley. So I want to ask you, and hey, the gold standard that we think is a gold standard, we're fooling ourselves sometimes. There's another point Antonio just made. So why is the supply chain industry uniquely burdened by unstructured data, Antonio?
It's just document driven. It's been like this for decades, right? Like we see insurance, we see bills of lading, we see freight, customs, and there is no universal schema. I'm sure people in the audience that have been like operators know what EDI is. That was something we've tried for the last 30, 40 years. It doesn't quite work. And so we've seen that legacy tools just break on edge cases. And what ends up happening is not that we're just burdened by unstructured data. It's what we call the human API, right? So like humans are actually the ones being this layer of communication. I've worked with companies that have literally someone in a corner of a room with 2 computers just passing data from one computer to the other 8 hours a day, and they did not seem very happy. And so we just see this continuously, data just arriving in form of emails, scans. And so we thought, hey, why don't we just build this like self-healing system that learns from the operator and makes them much faster, easier to use. It's truly where automation has to start, in my opinion.
Well said. Kevin, back to that person working two computers and not real happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Not many humans would be happy. And kidding aside, though, the quality of life for our teams, right? The work-life balance.
Yeah.
How can we act as leaders to take some of that pressure and get some of that friction and have them enjoy their days better? That might sound kind of hokey to some people, but that's a very important thing to many organizations out there, as it should be. But Kevin, what did you hear there about unstructured data?
Yeah, so Antonio mentioned, as he said, there's no perfect data schema. And that's true because the world is all about change and your business is all about change. And if you create a data schema, the second you're finished, it's old, right? Because it can't deal with change. And that, you visualize that human taking data out of one computer and putting it in the other computer. That's because the entire system can't deal with change, the change that occurs in the schema. Because you don't know today what data is important to you tomorrow or next week. And that's actually, I think, the value of things like artificial intelligence, because it allows the system to deal with change and basically communicate with the humans around it, saying, hey, this is different. Don't you want to change?
Kevin, I also heard in your example, and go back to Kevin, Antonio's original example.
Yeah.
And we also have a terrific opportunity to lean in technology so that not only can the systems and platforms and apps and processes talk to humans, but they talk to each other.
Yeah.
And we don't need that person sitting between the two computers. And I'm sure that's the focus of a lot of Antonio's work as well. And really quick, before I move on, actually, Antonio, interoperability, I'm sure that really important as part of all your conversations y'all are having, I imagine. Is that right?
That's a huge one. People don't want to just integrate it really well with their systems. They also want to communicate with people that have systems different than theirs, right?
Yeah.
And so I mentioned EDI earlier. If you want to do business with a Walmart or a Costco or a Trader Joe's, they're going to ask you to integrate with their system. And we think of BEM as a way to seamlessly translate the data so that you don't have to build, the 50th integration to sell to someone new.
Yeah.
EDI is something that a lot of people in the audience may recognize. Like, we've had it for the last 20 to 30 years. It's been the closest we ever got to have a universal interface, but it just falls short. Everyone has a very different format and protocol. And when you have, 150 standards, there's no standard, right? And so
there's a better way. So stay tuned, folks. We're going to get more into that in just a second. Be parsed. Some data is transactional, and then there is master data, which is the basis of the business, which is the data type that is a bigger issue. Antonio, you're nodding your head. Do you want to give a quick response?
That's a huge one. So we see two types of data, indeed. There is transient data that you just keep receiving from partners and vendors. And then there is what we call your source of truth, which is your business's data. We use both. Right? We think that without your business's data, we can't do a proper job at it. So every time we receive an email or a PDF, we use your business data to inform our AI. Hey, give it context essentially and make it understand what is this person a vendor? Is this person a customer? So I think both are incredibly important. The goal is to make all of this data coming in to be just as clean and neat as all the data you already have.
Yep. Well said. Kevin, you want to add a quick thought there?
Well, actually, I want to ask Antonio a question. So I'm going to blindside him here a bit.
Oh, watch out.
Talk about, transient data and persistent or business data. I mean, we learned during COVID that data from the past doesn't necessarily help you with your present situation. You can't throw away your transactional data because that reflects what's happening today. And that may have an effect or may need to change your persistent data. How do you deal with that?
That's super important to us. I think the way we see this is you have a system of record that contains all of your what we call the source of truth. And for a lot of our customers, that system of record is an ERP system or a TMS. We treat that as everything has happened so far and not necessarily as fact. Because you were saying, you had a really good point earlier, which is, hey, we live in a really volatile industry. Tariffs change, pricing change. We've seen customers just have pricing changes like 10 times a day, especially if you work in like perishables. And so the way we think about it is it informs the process, it gives it context, but we treat it just as a way to say to the system, look, this is what things look like now, but expect change. And we actually give more value to the new data coming in than the data that you already have. So it's almost just a way to shape the way that you would train a human being in your team, right? To say, hey, this is what has happened so far. FYI, things are going to change, so beware. And that's kind of how we think about it.
That's a great question, Kevin. And Antonio, I appreciate your response. And now I'm out. I'm well over my head in just that last exchange there, Antonio and Kevin. So I'm going to bring it back to what I know and can reminisce around. And really, you don't even have to reminisce here. Studies show that 80% of logistics communication, I'm not going to surprise anybody, still happens via email. Email. And there's still some fax machines out there. There's probably still some Blackberries still at work. So why is that, Antonio?
It's the most universal way we found of communicating between companies. It just works, right? I can't blame anyone. Like I can just fax anyone if they have a number. Funny enough, my co-founder and I built a huge fax integration in our last company. We were sending out 1 million faxes every week. It still exists. People love it. So we figured, look, rather than trying to remove it, because people have tried to remove this, right? Yep. Remove emails, remove fax. Why don't we just adapt to it? So it goes back to meeting people where they're at. If they feel comfortable communicating by email, by any means, please continue to do so. And we'll just deal with the messiness of it.
Oh, okay. Man, give the messiness to other people, Kevin. I love that. Can wish it away just about.
Yeah, but you can't really, because messiness is everywhere. Think about your daily life. How many different communications channels do you have to deal with every day? I mean, you're texting on your phone, you're doing a WhatsApp, you're sending an email, or you're talking with your voice. And everyone, all of your personal contacts have different favorites or preferences. Yes. I can't email my daughter because she never looks at that. But if I text her, it gets response right away. It's no different with a company trying to deal with its partners in its supply chain. You have to deal with multiple communications channels. You have to understand which is the preference of your partner so that you can be more efficient. And I guess, Antonio, that's a key aspect of what you're talking about, right?
It's efficiency at the end of the day, and it's being able to just operate your business. And look, to your point with texting and emailing and all that, we are what we call multimodal, which is lingo for just being able to structure data from texts, calls, voicemails, emails, because we figured your customers and your vendors are not going to be, just guardrail to communicating with you in one way. You're going to have 15 different channels. Yeah.
Yes. And maybe 30 by tomorrow, and maybe 45 by next week. I tell you. So, Antonio, before we get into the good news and some of the cool stuff you are doing, let's go back to Abidun. Why does RPA and email triage, those tools, fall short?
We just think it's too brittle. It breaks when formats change. It still handles very poorly what we call real world data. Right? RPA, we've had it for about 20 years. It hasn't actually improved much. And we still see what we call email triage, which is just humans reading emails manually. And so we figured instead of trying to standardize everything, let's just automate what we call the messy middle. Let's adapt to real world data rather than trying to pretend and convince people that we are some AI coworker. We have no ambition in trying to create a system that resembles a human being. We actually want to make humans much, much better and much, much happier at their job, right? And so that's really why it falls short. We've been trying to eliminate this, like the entropy of like human communication for so long. And I think with this latest wave of technology, we can finally embrace it and do something about it.
I love it. A couple thoughts there, Kevin. First off, Antonio's voice. You should do books on tape. You should be the voiceover. It is soothing, Antonio. It really is soothing,
isn't he?
But Kevin, he talked about the brittle, messy middle, right? In terms of why these tools fall short. I love that. And it's very, very true. Your quick thoughts before I move on.
One of the things that catches me off guard is, let's say I have a topic I'm discussing with an individual. They don't stay on the same channel. Okay. You may start on text and you may shift to email and then shift to a phone and then go back to email. I think a lot of the brittleness caused by humans is simply that. Humans change. They do things differently. They're inconsistent. And you have to deal with, dare I say it, change.
Yes. Hey, we have bad days. We'd have to drink bad coffee sometimes. We're not consistent. Let's face it. While faxes may be dated, old is still gold for many spaces of operation. It's true, Antonio.
And by any means, if you and your vendors and customers use faxes today, please continue using them. I think a lot of software, I think what's really interesting, not to get too riled up, is that a lot of software companies come in barging into like industries and try to change everything you're doing and tell you, hey, just stop faxing and stop emailing. We actually want people to continue doing what they're doing and be this invisible automation layer under the hood. Don't retrain an entire company on new formats. Keep faxing people. If that's what you enjoy, it works, right? Why change that?
We're not going to get rid of a form and pencil.
Honestly,
squares, slide rules, whatever those things are that smart people use. I'll go to my grave not knowing how to use a slide rule, and that's okay. That's okay.
You'd be surprised. A lot of our customers are sending them handwritten notes.
Yes.
And pictures. Yeah, especially warehouse management. They use a lot of handwritten notes for inventory tracking. And the system works really, really well for handwritten notes. So it's not crazy. Like, we actually want people to continue doing what they're doing.
My daughter went to school and they didn't have to learn cursive writing. So
really, they're not teaching cursive anymore. Okay, that's new. I didn't know that. So Antonio, we've teased this. I think we've wallowed a bit in the pain, and this is pain a lot of folks out there can connect with. I know I can connect in my days as a practitioner, some of the things we've talked about. So let's get firmly into the good news, and let's start with giving us a few examples of how teams are using BIM to process freight documents or invoices, rate conversions, you name it, in real time.
Honestly, we've seen up to a 90% reduction in manual processing. We have a lot of customers using us to process customer orders from their vendors, freight contracts. You don't want to have a team of people inputting manually an 80-page contract into a system. Invoice approvals is a huge one. Like, procurement is a big, big part of supply chain. We auto-extract vendors. We connect it to their system. The reason why this works is because we have exception management built into the platform. And so whenever our systems detect, hey, this is looking a little off, we immediately flag it to someone in the team that can like take a look at it.
Okay.
And so it's not about automating one document, right? I think a lot of people think about it as like one document at a time. It's about teaching your system to handle thousands and thousands of them every day, and the system improving over time by itself.
Before I get Kevin to comment here, I want to stick with that train of thought that you just finished your response on. Talk to us more about how operators can patch and fix workflows, and then to your point, teach the systems as they go. So the systems truly are machine learning. Tell us more about that, Antonio.
So we've seen a lot of the even current systems don't actually learn really well from the messiness of real life workflows. And so the way BIM works is, because we're not replacing your existing systems, we're just a layer under the hood. When an operator corrects something that has been missed, BIM captures the correction immediately and starts training itself on those changes, right? And so the way we think about it is if you onboard to BEM, maybe you start automating, let's say 30 to 50% of your workflows, which is pretty good. But we actually want the system to learn over time in a way that it improves. So that's what we call self-healing workflows, is fewer errors each cycle. One correction today prevents 100 errors tomorrow. That's kind of how we think about it.
Well, I love that. Self-healing workflows. And that title for it makes perfect sense. All the stress and the errors and the problems we can prevent. Truly. Kevin, your thoughts?
Well, it's, machine plus human, right? It's not one or the other. It's both working together and both improving. That's what's important about all of this. Leveraging the tool for what it's worth, leveraging the human for what they're worth.
Okay. So let's talk about the command center. Now, Kevin, I'm a big space nerd. This question reminds me of the NASA, Johnson Space Center, mission tracking, all that. So, Antonio, y'all have got a command center at BIM. What's important about the BIM version of the command center and how what I understand, puts control in the hands of the ops team where it should be?
When we started BIM, we were too DIY. To be honest, we made the classical mistake of trying to just barge in and change everyone. And here is this system. It's like giving someone a Game Boy, but instead of having like a casing and everything, it's just here's a screen and here's the buttons. Go figure it out. We've built a command center for operations teams to see, correct, and route the data, right? And so there's not a new dashboard. It's essentially a very, very simple interface that allows operations teams to see everything coming in and shape the system like they want, right? We don't want them to have to rely on an engineering team to change something. To your point earlier, Kevin, the industry changes every day. And so as new data comes in, we want the system to actually shape to the data and become this, what we call this invisible feedback loop. And so we just let their operations, the way that they use the system is training the system to serve them better in a way. And so if you go to the command center, which we're going to release really soon, you'll be able to essentially tell BIM, hey, here's how I run my business. Here are examples of the things that are the most tedious that I receive. And then the system starts shaping itself in a way that it makes sense to the operator. And then it basically at the end, it says, hey, tell your customers to fax to this number, email orders, do whatever they need to do, and we'll just update the system automatically and act as this like intake platform. And so far feedback has been great.
It sounds pretty cool. Kevin, your thoughts?
Well, it sounds like this command center is looking at ways to help communication across your internal team so that you can keep track. You don't lose that institutional knowledge of how to make things work better, quicker, faster. Is that true?
Yes. And in fact, I think one of the pitfalls we see from companies coming in is that they run their operations in a brittle way, in such a way, to give you an example, we work with a company where if one of the customer service reps is sick one day, their customers don't know who to talk to because they're just individually, they have assigned customers. And so we see this as a way, to your point, we see this as a way to take advantage of institutional knowledge and just have one single place for the entire team to manage operations.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story. We were talking about when NASA decided to go back to the moon. They said, "We've done this before. Just go build another Saturn V." And they said, "Well, we can't." "Why? You have all the blueprints." "Well, yeah, but 80% of the know-how of building a Saturn V was actually in that soft matter between people's ears." Right. And it's not documented anywhere. So the institutional knowledge was lost. So something like this command center will help you actually document that information, that data, that institutional knowledge that's in the soft matter between the ears.
That's exactly it. What we see from a lot of systems now in the industry is that they're not thinking about the soft matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time you use BIM, we have what we call a knowledge base that gets built dynamically with all your system, right?
Yeah.
And that builds that soft matter for everything moving forward to always run better and better and not lose what you were saying, like that 80% of knowledge, the know-how that is so critical.
That documentation, that's critical, that's important.
Well, so to that end, does it help BIM ensure systems are learning from that operator feedback as well?
It makes them more accurate. It makes them more contextual. I don't like making, pretending to be a human or an AI coworker, but in a way, it is like training someone to be the best team member you could have, right? It means now the system understands what you do, what's your path to revenue, what are your margins, who are your customers. And so we figured, the best way to serve our customers is to make sure that our system always, on a unique customer basis, that understands them and adapts to them, not the other way around.
Command center, is it better for small and medium-sized businesses or large enterprises? And can you share a detail or two around how it iterates based on what it's ingesting? Quick comment there, Antonio?
So we have everyone from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies using BEM today. I think the key is that it integrates very seamlessly with your existing systems. SMBs usually have a variety of QuickBooks and maybe an ERP. Larger companies we work with we've seen everything. IBM mainframes from the 1980s that are still running. And so we can integrate really seamlessly. And to your other question, the way that it iterates is every time you receive something in BEM, we start building this knowledge base and trying to understand, and not to get too technical, but it's something we call evals. And a lot of people in the AI industry understand what it is. But to explain it super simply, it is having a larger AI supervise how the AI is actually working. It's almost like a self-supervision, and then figure, here's what we're missing, and here are the opportunities that the system is missing, and trying to shape to them. I equate it to a human. If you were told by your boss, hey, you're going to be receiving up 500 invoices every day, just make sure you capture these things, and you start seeing that every invoice coming in just has this like blurb at the bottom or something like that, you would flag it to someone. You'd be like, hey, we're getting a lot of these. That's exactly the kind of thing that we want to do.
Let's talk about accuracy and compliance for heavily regulated industries. Really important here, Antonio. A couple thoughts there?
It's super important. When we started BEM, the first question we always got, and we still get, is how accurate is the system and can I trust it? And I think the way we frame it is, you can trust it because we've built it in a way that we don't even trust it ourselves. And so we want you to see it for yourself. And so we create audit trails for absolutely everything. Everything that comes in is evaluated. And also we give you the numbers, right? So let's say that your operation is incredibly complex and we see that accuracy starts at 95%. We tell you that it's 95%. And then we essentially show you how to make that into 100%. That is incredibly important to our customers. So it's not just, we are compliant on a bunch of certifications, but ultimately the way to do this is, rather than promise people, hey, this system is perfect and it's perfectly accurate, which a lot of people want to promise, and it's absolutely not true. What we tell them is, look, accuracy and compliance is very dependent on your business context. And so let's start using it. Let's see how it behaves. And then what we guarantee you is not perfect accuracy off the bat, is that you can get to perfect accuracy while you use the platform. And that's kind of how we think about it.
Okay. Perfection is in reach. I love that, Antonio, man. We're going to get a glimpse in the future in just a second. But Kevin, your thoughts there. Accuracy and compliance is important for any sector, any industry. But when there's heavy regulation involved, we better get that right, huh?
So when a company is, buying new hardware or buying new software or buying any type of technology, they always have those questions. But what they don't ask is the problem. They never ask, well, what is my accuracy right now with humans? What is my efficiency right now with humans? And they never compare the human accuracy to the prospective automation that they're about to maybe buy. And that's a mistake. Humans aren't perfect, and they're imperfect human, a perfect human is actually typically worse than an imperfect robot. So let's think about that.
We like to fool ourselves pretty regularly, Antonio and Kevin. We do, all of
That's
us.
so true.
Okay, so really appreciate those examples, and I really appreciate not only where y'all are in terms of BIM, but where you're headed, and some of that command center. I can't wait to get a look at that. Not just because I'm a space nerd, but that's really cool. Let's talk about what else is coming. Let's take a little peek into the future. So, Antonio, I've picked up on some of your worldview and global view in our earlier conversations. Tell us all why you see the future of operations not to be dashboards or chatbots, but rather what you call composable infrastructure that anyone can use. I love that. Your thoughts?
After talking to so many operators, we realized people don't want more dashboards. They don't want yet another software that they're buying. They want systems to just work. And they've been promised for decades the new shiny system that is better than the previous one. And we honestly think that the winning model is composable. It needs to fit into your business invisibly. It's not right in your face. It's not changing everything that you do. It adapts to what you already do. And so BIM doesn't replace your existing systems. It helps your systems think better. I think that's how companies really scale without adding operational drag is, hey, the future is not a dashboard you stare at. It's decisions happening invisibly with the ability for people to monitor what the system is actually doing and interject when necessary, which is super, super important. So working in tandem with teams. We're not selling a chatbot. I think chatbots are really interesting. Voice agents are very interesting. I think ultimately what people want is for the system to work. And so we just want to help real businesses run smarter behind the scenes. I think we've built our strong thesis that I think a lot of the companies today, and we see this every day, we see this more and more. A lot of the people that we work with on logistics and supply chain never thought about software 5 years ago. Now they're becoming software companies. They're hiring CTOs, they're hiring engineers. And so the whole thought of, oh, we're replacing humans. Actually, there's more jobs being created because they see the potential in becoming software companies themselves. We want to be that building block that they use.
I like that. And Kevin, going back to the first part of his response there, and I might be thinking out loud here, but he said no one wants more dashboards. And it's so true. We talk about the need to enhance all of our human team members' ability to make decisions faster and better. We talk about it all the time because that's a big objective of much of where we are in 2025. But the even better part on that is in some cases, if we can eliminate the need to even make a decision, that's a beautiful thing. But Kevin, what'd you hear there in Antonio's glimpse of the future?
I hear that they're striving to be more intuitive so that it's not like a one-way conduit of information, just looking at what the chatbot tells you or what the dashboard shows you. More of interactivity, more understanding the data and how it relates to what's actually happening.
Yep.
And by doing that, you're leveraging humans for their value, their thinking ability, their understanding of what's right and what's wrong, and how it compares to what's actually happening. And it actually enables that change to be more effective. So I like that approach. I really do.
Hey, if you like it, I like it, Kevin. If it passes the Kevin L. Jackson litmus test, it's good for me too. All right. Kevin L. Jackson. Antonio has really, he really has a way of making what's really complex, at least for folks like me, right? I started in computer science in college and learned quickly, hey, programming, C++ back in the day, that wasn't my bag. But he's got a way at really simplifying things. That's important in this fast-moving world. But what's your favorite takeaway from the conversation here today, Kevin?
I like the approach to that blend of advanced technology with AI and humans in order to tackle the data challenge, the unstructured data challenge. And I think that's an effective approach to dealing with dynamicism of the supply chain and logistics environment. So good on you.
Ooh, high praise there from Kevin. And it's not an either or. It's a and, right?
Yeah, it's an and.
Lean into the and. Well, I've really enjoyed today's conversation, Antonio. I can't wait to have you back. Kudos to you and Zoe and the wonderful team that's helping other teams elsewhere across supply chain and beyond find more success and find it easier and make their days more fulfilling and less pressure filled and less friction filled. That's good news in my book. So big thanks to Antonio Bustamante, CEO with BIM. Great to have you here, Antonio.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, hey, we're going to compare sake notes soon too.
Yeah. I want that recipe, by the way.
That's right.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, Kevin, always a pleasure. Enjoyed your perspective and expertise here today. Always a pleasure to have these sessions with you.
No, you're stretching my mind, baby. I like it.
Oh, watch out. Watch out, world. Oh, a big thanks to Antonio. Big thanks to Kevin L. Jackson. Folks, be sure to connect with both Antonio and Kevin. But whatever you do, here's a challenge, folks. Here's the homework. Y'all know where I'm going. The homework is you got to take one thing that Antonio or Kevin shared, and you got to do something with it, right? Otherwise, it's meaningless. We change the industry through deeds, not words. So with all that said, on behalf of the entire Supply Chain Now team, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And we'll see you next time, right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Join the Supply Chain Now community for more supply chain perspectives, news, and innovation. Check out supplychainnow.com, subscribe to Supply Chain Now on YouTube, and follow and listen to Supply Chain Now wherever you get your podcasts.